Hello YouTube, I'm back again with another video, and this time I'm going to be doing a deck profile. I did do a deck profile on this on my communication, but I want to do a video of this deck as well for those who are skeptical of my card choices. But I personally think this suits my playstyle because for those who are where I try to play different variants or whenever I compete with meta decks, I try to make my own build where I can actually have the most joy out of playing the deck. Because I'm not someone who enjoys net decking, but some cards you have to put in there, even at 3, to keep the deck going. So, besides hearing all my talking, I'm just going to continue forward, and we're going to go straight to the deck profile. Obviously, we're maxing out on 3 Ash Blossom. Not much to explain. It's usually used to go sync or summon into a specific monster. As well as it always comes in clutch. It also reduces the consistency of a lot of decks out there. And before, people did not like Ash Blossom. They thought it was really annoying. But considering the odds of seeing it, and especially in a 40 card deck, were a lot lower. Unless there were cards you can access to it, it keeps the game in check for those who are playing too much consistency, because in Yu-Gi-Oh! The game itself is very fast, so you want to reduce the odds of them going to their key combo, which inherently prevent you from playing this game. So obviously we're maxing out 3 Kashtira. He is the best Kashtira, but I wouldn't say he's the main Kashtira in the deck, because there's an important one that I'm going to mention that I'm sure you guys should be aware of. But obviously allows you to allow any Kashtira monster from your deck, including itself. And whenever this card attacks, or if your opponent activates a monster effect, just so you know, this is a trigger effect. So the effect only resolves after the opponent's monster effect resolves. You can banish one face-up card on the field, but it is targeting either way. So, and we're going to be playing 3 Ogre. People are not too sure why I'm playing 3. It's mainly because I want to. Either way, it still gives you consistency. It is another level 7. You can special summon from your hand easily. On top of that, some people might not be aware or just don't care, but he's also one of the strongest Kashtira monsters in the main deck. That's just my personal opinion. But essentially being able to add any Kashtira trap from your deck to your hand is very important regardless, because it helps you get to the board that you want to build, especially that if you want to have more options, this card is another option to go into. So, but either way, it helps you go into specific trap to help you create even further boards and just to pretty much outclass your opponent. So we're just going to be playing 2 Rise Heart. Some people are trying 3, but I think 2 is the perfect ratio, usually because you want the odds of seeing multiple copy Rise Hearts, you may end up regretting it, because it is a level 4 and it is a warrior monster. Because it is important that you don't draw into multiple copies of Rise Heart. You just want to see one copy, because if you manage to have one level 7 in your hand that you can special summon easily, then that's when Kashtira Rise Heart will come to play, and that you as like when you bet, because if you control a Kashtira monster, you can special summon this card from hand, but it restricts you from special summon extra besides Xyz monsters. But on top of that, during the main phase, you have the option. If it was normal special summon's turn, you can banish one Kashtira monster or a card from your deck, except Rise Heart, banish top 3 cards of your opponent's deck face down, and if you do this card's level becomes 7. So playing 3 Rise Heart doesn't really help your situation, so it's like you rather just see once it's easily searchable with this deck. On top of that, there's no reason to be playing level 4s in the deck unless they either help you search or unless they help you go into your level 7 Xyz monsters. I mean rank 7, I apologize. And the most important Kashtira monster I was talking about that is also the main starter is actually Unicorn. The reason why you want to see Unicorn the most, because it essentially helps because a lot of the spells that you're searching into are extenders. That's the main reason why too. Are one of the more consistent, more accurate cards that help you benefit throughout the long run of the duel. And we're maining 3 Lava Golems to have Imperm, because even though it does cost you your normal summon, being able to get rid of 2 monsters on the field and then replacing those 2 monsters with Lava Golem really helps, because those 2 monsters on the field could possibly be Floodgates And that's what I'm. That's the one I want. That's what I think is very important because you need a way to out their floodgates, as well as omni negates. They're monsters that stop you from playing. So the monsters that are stopping you from playing, you use this card to out them easily. And although he has 3,000 attack, they get to benefit having a monster that's strong. But you want to ensure that even though he has that much attack, you have ways of getting around that. That's all I want you guys to be aware of. All depending on how you play your cards, depending what you have in hand, and you have multiple extenders. This is just a piece of cake, honestly. And just one planet Pathfinders, I asked somebody as a suggestion how many you should play. He said two, but I think one is perfect because giving you a second terraforming, although you do have to normal summon, you just need that one normal summon is important. That one normal summon can really help. Even though we're playing 3 Lava Golem, even though that does cost us our normal summon, I always feel Planet Pathfinder is very suitable in the Kashtira build. Because Pressure Planet is a very powerful score. It's actually better than Theosis, 100%. Simply because it comes in clutch. If you're in a losing situation, you have no cards in the field, you draw into Pressure Planet, you can either go into your Fenrir or Unicorn, and if they have one powerful monster that doesn't negate, either that just has a lot of attack, that Pressure Planet can get you the win that you need, essentially. Because especially if your opponent doesn't have that many monsters, even if they do have a lot of monsters, but if they don't have that many negates, disruptions, this makes this duel a piece of cake, honestly. And we're just for our last Scareclaw monster, just playing the one Scareclaw Kashtira and the tournaments just for a few important extenders, as well as their names is important. I want to mention the reason why I'm also playing the one Tillemans Kashtira, although its stats is not as good, doesn't compare to Kashtira, the Scareclaw Kashtira. I feel like it is essential being able to mill the top 3 cards of either player's opponent's deck, because if you mill your opponent's deck as well as like have powerful monsters in the field, I feel like that decreases the odds of them winning, honestly. So what I mean, decreasing the odds, like you're taking away a lot of their resource, as well as you have given yourself even more advantage by summoning out powerful monsters on the field, so that towards the end they don't draw into the cards they need, because it also takes away their combo pieces. So move forward, we're going through the spells, which is Dark Ruler no more. Not too much to explain. Just be able to out those Omni boards, even though they don't take any damage this turn either way, and they cannot respond to basically Super Poly if you guys refer to not fusion something. So 3 Kashtira Birth, very important card, basically better than Theos in my opinion, honestly. It is the starter spell of the deck, obviously, because you can normal summon level 7 monster without tribute. On top of that, it has overall 3 powerful effects. During the main phase, you can special summon 1 Kashtira non-Xyz monster from that is either banished or in your graveyard. And on top of that, if you control a Kashtira monster, and your opponent decides to activate a spell card or effect, and you control a Kashtira monster, target 3 cards in the graveyard, bash them face down. So basically, powering up your strategy, essentially helping you take away the resource, giving your deck even further advantage, and it's a floodgate, honestly. The reason why I consider floodgate is you constantly summon Kashtira monsters, which in itself makes the deck a problem too. So Konami might decide to hit the card. I'm not going to say what number, but we're going to have to find out sooner or later. But overall, there's no exceptions. You always play 3 of this card. Just the best spell card, just the most oppressive card in the Kashtira build, in my opinion. And there's no reason why you should play less than 3. Just 2 Theosis. Some people are skeptical again as to why I'm just playing 2. Overall, it's mainly useful if you're going first and second, and we have other cards to help benefit us, to help us see and pretty much gain even more consistency. So although yes, in a way it is consistent, helps you special summon from the deck, but it's only useful unless you're about to exceed summon. But either way, being able to essentially search more cards is very good. And consider how my deck is built. You have so many ways of getting this card out. The reason why I'm just playing 2 because you usually go use it if you're going first. And then the second one, you use it if you're going second. And although, because that also, on top of that, that monster that you special summon stays in defense mode. So, even though, yes, you get more monsters, you get multiple search, you get multiple searches with this card. But it doesn't help you declare game after. So, 2 is important regardless. However, I feel that's just my opinion. But on top of that, it is very good because even when it's banished, you can target one of your banished Kashtira monsters. I mean Kashtira cards. Sorry. And it gets added to your hand. That banished Kashtira card goes straight to your hand if this card's banished. And you'll eventually find that people, I'm sure you guys are aware about the combo. There's not much you need to say, but I'll explain afterwards. 3 Pot of Prosperity as to why I'm just playing 2 Theosis. 3 Pot of Prosperity is essentially very strong in this deck. Very helpful, very beneficial. Just just helping you guarantee you multiple like options. Just outright give just you benefiting which cards you need, and then you get to depend what cards in your hand, and the cards that you don't have in hand, you get to add it to your hand if it's not already in your hand. So important, most important, but you don't need to really use the extra deck that much because already the monsters in the main deck are powerful enough as it is. But for those who don't understand, let me explain. You can banish 3 or 6 cards of your choice from your extra deck face down. For the rest of this turn, after it resolves, your opponent, the damage that your opponent takes is half, but you get to activate that many cards from your top of your deck equal to the number of cards banished this way. You add one of them, so essentially any card, even another prosperity. But if you do, you cannot draw any cards by effect the turn you activate this card. So even though you can't draw cards, that's not the case, because adding is not considered drawing, depending on either on the rulings or based on the if you read the card text carefully. But one thing I can say, not only does it potentially hurts your extra deck, but it can potentially hurt you in the mirror batch, because the more cards that are banished face down on the player's field, the more the custom cards benefit from that, because we already should be aware of what the combo is capable of. And that's why people fear. Even though we have the zone locking, you also have the milling as well you got to include. So obviously we're playing 3 Pressure Planet. I just feel like overall, definitely a very consistent card. I wouldn't say better than Birth. Still very important. You got to play 3 of this. Easily searchable. One of those cards that's just easily searchable. Since the fact it is a field spell, on top of that, you could add a Kashtira monster from deck to your hand, even though it isn't Kashtira card itself. And interesting part is that monsters you control gain 100 attack and defense for each attribute on the field. But if a Kashtira Shangira you control activates an effect, you can target one card in the field, destroy it. And you already know a lot of its effects have hard ones per turn. And we use Terraforming to search it. 3 triple tactics talents in case your opponent decides to activate monster effects, because we hate when they activate monster effects during our main phase, during our turn, honestly. And in case you haven't activated Prosperity, you can draw 2 cards, or even if you did activate Prosperity, you can still manage to activate these other 2. Gain control of an opponent monster. You're gaining control of a monster your opponent controls till the end phase. You get to look at their hand, choose 1 card from it to shuffle into the deck. And our last trap cards, which is why we're playing 3 Ogre, Kashtira Big Bang, in case you want to use the Rise Heart combo to banish the Big Bang. Detach one of the materials that is attached to a Kashtira XC monster, special summon it, but basically has an evenly match effect, where if you control if a Kashtira XC monster is on the field and a player controls 2 or more monsters, they must banish monster control face down until they only control 1 monster. So that's also the main reason why it's really good. You should only play 1 because it can be very big if you don't have 1 on the field, so you know what I mean. Kashtira Preparation, some people decide to cut this card. I do feel this card is very, very oppressive, depending how you play this out. That's why I'm playing the Ogre, to see this card as much as possible. Not only you get to special summon a Kashtira monster that is banished on your hand, but if your opponent decides if they want to activate a trap card while you control this card, including a Kashtira monster, and this card is already face up in your spell trap card time, you get to literally look at your opponent's hand. Basically, another triple tactics talents. You get to look at a card in your opponent's hand. You get to look at a card in your opponent's hand. On top of that, you banish it from the hand face down. Your choice, 100%. So it's not random. You get to choose. That's why I have no problem playing this card in my deck, because I feel like you get to, even though it oppresses the opponent, you can't deny how good this card is, even though you literally just play as one of easily searchable. But some people don't like it simply because the fact is it's a trap card, but as one that can still like even the odds. But I would not really say even the odds, but can give the Kashtira deck more options to try to like basically, essentially, and obviously to do as much damage to the opponent, whether it's to like break their hand, break their board, as well as do damage to their field. So it also reduces the odds of the opponent drawing to certain cards and getting rid of their key cards, as well as like just making sure that you reduce their odds of actually trying to keep up with you, and that like you benefit from making sure that you gotta seal the duel, close it out, make sure they don't have any ways of countering your strategy, and that's the beneficial reason why you play this card. And although it is a trap, it just you pretty much are in luck if you play this card. Either way, like even if they're not playing traps, that's not a problem. You could still get to extend your board. But even if they don't play any traps, it's always good as a one of just in case. You always have it there just in case you want to rip their hand. You want to push for more monsters, even though you can't activate the turn it is set, obviously because it's a trap. But the only thing you could say wrong about this card is just that the fact it's a trap. But overall, you can't deny that it has really good effects. So side decks is just up to personal preference. It's based depending on your locals where you go to. These are just my cards. So I'm not really going to explain too much, but I'm going to go straight to the extra deck. Obviously, we're playing Baron de Fleur, which is why we're playing 3 Ash Blossom. You want to be able to see this card. Not only does it give you a negate, on top of that, you can target one card on the field, destroy it, and its third effect is very, very important too, because once per turn during the standby phase, you can target one level 9 or lower monster in your graveyard, return this card to the extra deck. If you do, special summon that monster. One, and then for our Xyz monsters, Dark Arm, the Dragon of Annihilation. This card is very important. You don't care so much about the first effect, but it's the fact that you get to pop on a bunch of cards. It's not once per turn, even though it can attack, but the reason why it's so useful because this card actually synergizes with the Kashtira cards, because if one of your Kashtira cards was to get banished, they get to resolve their effects when banished, and you get to activate it while after activating Dark Arm's effect. 2 Divine Zeus, reason why, because you were playing a lot of Xyz monsters, just a very strong monster, just being able to eliminate every single card that's on the field, excluding itself, and just very strong overall. And because a lot of your monsters are level rank 7 Xyz monsters that are like overall have a lot of attack, or like so it's overall, or if you're what helps is that if your opponent decides to tackle over them, they try and you have one of them that can protect themselves. But again, it's only if an Xyz monster battle this turn. I don't even think you have to battle a monster, but overall, there's a reason why I play 2, because you want to reduce the odds of your opponent making a comeback. This is to close the duel. This is to make sure that your opponent has no way of making a comeback. So that's why you want to give every single card the field, even if it means risking your own field. 2 Rise Hard, which is important. Just very easy, just a very easy Xyz monster to summon, because all that matters if you activate Shangira's effect. You can essentially use any you can use any custom monster, even if it isn't an Xyz monster. After Shangira's effect resolves, you can use one custom monster, even if they are an Xyz monster, as Xyz material. Just summon this guy out. You get a 3K monster, easy, big, strong beat stick on the field after the effect resolves that I already mentioned. So and it becomes transferred. That monster that you use becomes transferred as material. And what's crazy is that anytime a card is sent to the graveyard, it is banished instead. And once per chain, each time a card is banished, attach one card that is banished to this card. So you could essentially abuse the hell out of cards that get that activate when they're banished. So if Kasha Theos gets banished, it resolves with Rise Heart as well as Big Bang. or any card that you have that is banished, that is sent to the banish zone, will resolve because of this card's effect, because it doesn't matter. Any card that's sent to graveyard is banished instead. So this card in itself lets you abuse the heck out of cards that benefit from being banished, 100%. And this could be a hit that Konami might decide to make. But once per turn, it is a quick effect. You can detach 3 materials from this card, which I said is easy to pretty much abuse, because every single turn you are getting a material anytime a card is banished. So even if it does lose materials, it keeps getting materials every single turn. But then you could target one card on the field, it gets banished face down. 2 Shangri-La, which is obviously important. There's no reason to play less than 1. You have to play 2 because of the Kashtira deck. And essentially allowing you to get access to any Kashtira monster from your main deck to the field. I don't do the zone lock with this deck. I just don't feel. Yes, I'm not heavily emphasized on that because I feel like it is dependent on luck, and I just would rather just essentially try to, like, if I'm playing Kashtira, I want to build my board as much as possible. Just try to add coverage. That all I want is coverage rather than just zone lock. Even though I do use this, I do lock my opponent's zones with this card, but I don't try to do the entire full combo with the zone lock using Shangri-La, because even though it would be, it would be like a huge milestone, it'd be an incredible achievement. It all, you just have to be very lucky. It all depends how consistent your deck is. If you are very like dedicated to it. I'm personally not, because all that matters, I just want to play a strong deck that can help me. So overall, this card just adds a lot of coverage, like I already spent. It's just for coverage. Each time a card your opponent owns banished face down, each time a card they own is banished face down, or is possessed face down, choose one unused main monster or spell check card. It cannot be used while the card's face up. And the best part is, like, the other effect is not once. The last 2 effects are not once per turn. On top of that, if this card in the field would be destroyed by battle card effect, you could just detach 1 material from this card instead. So you can use any number of level 7 monsters summon this guy, and he has a huge amount of protection. Just even though you don't want to use up too many of your Kashtira monsters, it still has a lot of added protection just by the number of exceed materials you can use to summon this guy. 1 Dracosac, although may not be better, but in this case I want to link summon for Donner using its tokens, or it does not compare to Darkholm, let's be honest. But overall, just being able to tribute a token or itself to target a card on the field start. So it is a cost to activate, which is nice in a way when you're tributing, because if they try to activate Skill Drain or Infinite Impermanence, you could tribute Dracosac, and then you could target 1 card in the field because its effect resolves in the grave. You target a card in the field and destroy it. So even if they have Skill Drain out, this card can actually get rid of Skill Drain either way. So 2 Big Eye, not much to explain. People should be aware how good this card is. Pretty much any deck, if you're running light rank 7s, level 7s, in my opinion. It's because you're essentially playing, if depending how you use this card, you're possibly playing 2 or 3 of every monster that is being played in the duel. So if your opponent is deciding to play 1 or 2 Diabloses, you're essentially playing 3 Diabloses. If you have 2 Big Eye and your opponent decides to have 1 Diablos on, like, whether it's on the field or 1 in the extra deck. So if they have 2 Diabloses and you have 1 Diablos in your main deck, extra deck, so it's 2 Big Eye, you're essentially playing 3 Diablos. And the reason why it's so good, because although this card cannot attack, it ensures that, like, that you aren't being oppressed by the monster, although only if the card can be targeted. So just a reminder, Dragoon is basically immune to this effect. Destiny Hero can chain to this effect and pop the Big Eye. But I do feel like just going to Big Eye just helps you build on your offense as well as defense. So it's both an offensive defensive card. And although we cannot attack, you can always decide if your opponent doesn't have a monster afterwards, you can always use them for Zeus as your play. If they have no monster that you're willing to take control of. But overall, this card, I just do feel like this card is important because you're playing almost every single, like 80-90% of the monsters in this game, besides the ones that that cannot be targeted or that can chain to its effect. So that's why in itself it's just overall very powerful effect, as the reason why I'm playing 2 copies. I think 2 is just perfect the way it is because it doesn't help you going first. But you're essentially playing the majority of the monsters of this game, considering how powerful this card is, because you have to be aware how powerful this card is. Like, you literally take control of the duel with this one card, especially if you're playing multiple copies. It makes a huge difference, honestly. And there's nothing, even though it can attack, there's nothing you can criticize about this card besides the opponent. And obviously, this is a card that's going to be potentially banned. I've heard the rumors, and I don't blame the people saying otherwise. I have to agree on this because, just even though it's not a Kashtira card, it's basically built revolving around Kashtiras, if anything. Because of how big this card's potential is with Kashtira, it has mass to a very heavily abusable card. Because once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, look at your opponent's extra deck, banish 1 monster from it face down. We don't care too much about the battle phase effect, but either way, we're gonna get to the last effect after. But if this at the end of the battle phase, if this card destroys a monster battle, you target 1 card in your opponent's graveyard, banish it face down, and this is the most broken effect. So if a card your opponent owns and possesses is banished face down while you control this card, you can banish cards from the top of your opponent's deck face down equal to their face down banished cards, even though you can only use this hard once per turn. This effect is broken because pretty much a lot of your custom monsters banish face down. A lot of your cards do that. And more than one, especially since you have more than one card that can do that. And if you banish a lot of cards with this card, including with all the other cards that banish face down, besides Dublosis, there's no cost to it. Let's be real, there's no cost. You essentially mill almost 10 cards in your opponent's deck in 1 turn. You could essentially do that. You can mill almost close to 10 cards in your opponent's deck, or even more, or more than 10, depending how lucky you really are. But in Konami's eyes, they might decide to look into this. But 100%, this card should be banned, even if I'm the user. Like, because imagine someone using this against me, even though I'm playing Kashtira myself. This is a card that can't get away. This is a card that needs to be checked 100%. Because by the more cards you destroy from your opponent's deck, especially with the 2 Rise Heart, the tier limits Kashtira, I already have cards that can do it. Especially since I'm playing Rise Heart. Rise Heart helps strengthen the effect of Diablosis in its own unusual way. It is unusual because people did not realize it until Rise Heart came out, as well as decided to playtest with Diablos, and then you find out how broken it truly is, especially with Rise Heart. Look at Rise Heart. You banish 3 cards from the top of the deck face down, and essentially, like I said, that's literally close to 10 cards, because you're essentially banishing 8 cards from their... Ah, shit. Sorry about that, you guys. Give me a moment. Let me go back to the deck profile. I'm gonna have to log in. Sorry about that. Like I said, I'm gonna go straight to the deck profile. Yeah. Apparently I timed out because I wasn't playing the games often. So, like I already explained, as it is, you're essentially banishing 8 cards face down with Deep Plus, as well as the combo with Rise Heart, depending if you do the exact card combo correctly. So yeah, it should be banned, honestly. Banishing 8 cards right off the bat in itself is very abusable, and it should not be overlooked. And obviously our last sea monster, Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, in case you're going in for time. Usually the best time you want some is near the end of the game, when your opponent has less than like 1,000 life points, or have they have the least amount of life points, like somewhere around 2,000 or less. But overall, it just hurts to have this card out while your opponent is trying to find ways to get around it, which they can't, because if they try to unless the only way to get around this card is if they activate a card that negates its effect. It's like something a Dark Ruler, if they tribute it. Overall, there's nothing they can do unless they can negate this card's effect, and it really does not help the opponent whatsoever. It definitely does help you, especially as the controller of this card, because of how easy it is to summon. And you have to understand how the card works, especially with the time rules included. So even if they have ways of trying to kill you, and you manage to summon this guy out, and they try to go straight to the battle phase, but the last second their main phase ends by the time, then you most likely you're lucky enough you win based on the time. So because it's about having, so what matters, even if you do manage to, if the opponent managed to get over this, you can still win at a local duel or competitive tournament based on the time with this card. So and just for our last two extra monsters, which are our link monsters, Blackluster Soldier of Chaos. If this card's used, if you link summon this card using a level 7 or higher monster as material, your opponent cannot target it with card effects, also cannot be struck by your opponent's card effects. And I want to explain the other effects. The most important effect, when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, either gains 1500, this card can make a second attack during the battle phase of your next turn. But the most important effect is banishing one card in the field, because it does not target on top of it. You're essentially getting rid of two cards the same turn when after this card destroys a monster. Being able to banish a card is very useful because some cards trigger or they resolve when they're in the graveyard, so you get around the clause of the card by banishing it so that they don't get to benefit when being sent to the grave. But might I add that there are few cards out there that get that benefit from being banished, but it doesn't really matter since too many cards benefit from going to the graveyard. The first two effects aren't so the best because they only apply during your next turn, which isn't too beneficial, but overall they're not bad effects, but they are kind of decent. Depending, if you can't use the third effect, then you might as well go for the first effect, even if unless you can't activate the last effect that you see here. But only if you can't activate the last effect is when you go for give this card 1500 attack. But it does help to give this card 1500 attack, especially if it cannot be targeted by card effects or be struck by your opponent's card effects. Last extra monster, obviously, Donner isn't really essentially the best monster, but the reason why people play it, like, it opens up your zones. You don't really use the effect to special summon a for hire monster from your grave. This is the only for hire monster in your graveyard, obviously. But it's simply for the fact that you just pop a card on the field, and then make your monsters opening and special summon another Kashtira monster from your hand. Again, isn't the best effect, but it has its uses though. It's just for the idea that, like, if you just want to clear more boards, like that is under your opponent's control, that is on the side of your opponent's field. That's how you look at it, because the more you manipulate your field, the more you remove cards from your opponent's field, essentially helps you get more access to your other custom monsters, if you guys get what I mean. Overall, not much to explain, but people still do play it. At first, I didn't understand, but now I get why they do it. Just being able to help open up your field even further and just clear your opponent's board a lot more easier as well. So overall, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll admit I was talking too much in this video, which I shouldn't have. I should have probably tried to kept my words, kept my sentences not too long-winded. Should have been clear and concise with what I'm about to say, but for those, I'm just explaining for those who want a detailed explanation of why I even play these cards, which is why I have no problem having to speak as much as I am right now. But hopefully you guys understand what I'm referring to, and that you get an idea. You get like some other options if you decide to play this deck, and it helps maybe open up your eyes makes you want to even reconsider even playing this deck, because who knows, it might get hit either way. But like, overall, this is just to help you guys open up whether you want to play Yu-Gi-Oh or what you decide to do. It's your choice. But this is me just giving people tips how to play this deck. These are just all my card choices, in my opinion, what I feel comfortable with. This will just help clear things up for those who are looking into this, and maybe you can benefit, who knows. But don't be shy away to ask me for any advice, any tips of this card game, Yu-Gi-Oh, obviously, and where you can start off, or if you want to just help yourself into getting more experience, I can just try and help you innovate your deck, try to help you avoid net decking, because especially if you don't know the strategy at all, then there's no point following through with it. And I want you guys to follow through with my methods and just be here to appreciate what I'm showing you, so that maybe you can realize in a way, I've become a more better influencer than others who are willing to put their efforts and try to help the audience and try to be able to do the best I can, as try to let you know, be aware how competitive this game is, and that you yourself are willing to put your passion and be dedicated in what you've been like so I'm like interested in, especially your hobbies, that it's something that is just hard to go away, that you can't forget, especially when you have passion for something. Where will it end? Do you want to end this? You obviously need something to keep you happy. You want to be able to enjoy your life, so you are not always too stressed. It's to help you avoid stress, and also be sure that don't let anything take away your pride. Don't let anything take away your passion. Just be thankful of what's in front of you, and that you yourself won't give up, and that you're willing to move forward and make something good happen out of it. And that when you can achieve greatness is where success will come and be involved in your life. But overall, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, be sure to check for more upcoming content later in the future. Be sure to check your notifications. Comment, like, subscribe. Thank you.